Hasbro has recently released its big quarterly report for 2023, and it's even worse than a lot of critics foresaw. But importantly for role players and gamers, this report includes some huge implications for Dungeons & Dragons and Magic the Gathering owner Wizards of the Coast. In fact, this report may have even accidentally leaked the real reason as to why the OGL scandal took place earlier this year. Yeah, remember that? It's back! And the report goes even further, highlighting Dungeons & Dragons and making some extremely worrying indications about the future of D&D. So, is this the end of Dungeons & Dragons? Or does it simply spell change for how the Wizards of the Coast are approaching the game? I'm trying to keep it light because it really is, it's pretty scary. Like cracking a joke to the man in your kitchen that you don't recognize at 1 a.m. How did you get here? But to talk about the future of Dungeons & Dragons, or lack thereof, we first have to briefly mention the past. See, 2023 was a pretty wild ride for D&D, and it was a big year for Wizards of the Coast and their parent company, Hasbro, as well. There were a lot of scandals this year, and they have garnered a lot of ill will in the role-playing community. And as a result, there were a lot of people within that community who were hopeful that Hasbro Wizards would receive some type of karmic justice, and perhaps even be punished for pushing the boundaries in all the wrong directions. And this bloodlust may actually be satisfied a little, because Hasbro have actually gotten a little bit of comeuppance. They recently released their report for this quarter, and things look really grim for the company, with their stock just hitting an all-time low. So that's pretty spooky for the execs at the upper echelons, and when execs get spooked, sometimes heads go rolling. Or in this case, cocks go rolling. Get it? Because the head of Hasbro is called Chris Cox, and you also have a head on it. But as usual, this huge dip has resulted in the familiar cries of Hasbro going bankrupt, WotC is over, and of course, the head favorite, Dungeons & Dragons is dead, all beginning to appear on my Reddit, YouTube, and Twitter feeds. And while this could very easily be perceived as simple doom-mongering from the gallery, the reality is that things are quite complicated right now for Hasbro. See, there is a very good reason for the Hasbro stock sliding down the stock ticker quicker than a biker's damn on a bathroom stall. And that's money. Or rather, the lack thereof. Hasbro have just reported a, quote, extremely disappointing earnings in the last quarter of this year. Toy profits are down, entertainment profits are down, life is down. Things are grim. Not grim enough that Hasbro didn't make money, mind. They still turned a profit. But we live in a world where these mega corporations must pursue growth at any cost forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And the moment that the line doesn't go up quite enough, everyone starts eyeing the nearest window. Break glass in case of emergency. And I feel very similar about my subscription numbers, so please do subscribe. There's a window right there. But the even worse problem for Hasbro, rather than just simply the line doesn't go up enough, is that they also have a ton of debt. So they do actually need to grow quite a bit, or else all their liabilities are going to catch up to them. And so while they are still making money, they are right to be concerned about whether they're making enough to keep the Pinkertons away, which is rather ironic. So then, they'll want to focus on the parts of their business that is actually making a lot of money, and squeeze it for a whole lot more of mommy's delicious milk. And that's Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons & Dragons, right? I mean, Wizards of the Coast are always dependable for $1 billion or two. Forget toys, I want to talk about toys. Adult toys. Nice. Well, you see, the thing about that is, this part is probably the most shocking element of the report. One that has massive implications for role players everywhere. So strap in, because this is gonna be a huge revelation, and might even explain why the OGL scandal took place. Hey Roy, that reminds me, I haven't gotten your card yet. Oh, sure thing, Bob. Here it is. Is that an extra? Sure is, Bob. This baby is half the size of a conventional wad, carries up to 12 cards and cash. Oh, and this? That's space grade aluminium. Look at that soft black coloring, the tasteful slimness of it. Oh my god, it even has a location tracker. How the hell would I get one of those? Oh, It's easy, Bob. Just check out partner.extra.com/dungeons and discourse, linked in the description below. And you can get up to 50% off Extra's wallets between November 10th to the 26th for Black Friday. Oh, and don't forget to use my code Dungeons and Discourse at checkout, and you'll get an additional 5% off as well. Wait, he can hear my thoughts? Is he telepathic? No, Bob. It's just what everyone thinks. Okay, so Hasbro are down significantly. Things are looking pretty rough for them at the minute. Their smaller sibling, Wizards of the Coast, must be the same, right? Well, no, actually. Like my grandpapa after his nightly Viagra, Wizards of the Coast are actually up. By a lot. In fact, they're up a full 40% increase in revenue when compared to last year. Wow, what a success story. 2023 is definitely the year the Wizards of the Coast deserve to make more money. The system works. Okay, so the endless scandals of 2023 didn't have an impact on their bottom line then. Well, not exactly. See, this is where things get pretty funky. While Wizards are up 40%, and that's the headline that everyone will focus on, when we actually dive into the report, and by we, I mean me, and by dive into, I mean blearily read at 4 a.m. screaming at the ceiling, why? Why is this what I do? So, you know, if you want to support my continued existential dread, then please check out my Patreon to help me keep making content. But we can see that the 40% increase for WotC is coming from a very specific little gold mine. 2 words: digital gaming. That's right, toss your physical rulebook in the fire and take the digital supplement into your hand in the immortal, unforgettable, very famous words of Gandalf.
It's quite cool.
CEO of Hasbro, Chris Cox, said this: Wizards of the Coast and digital gaming delivered a standout performance across strength in Magic the Gathering and Dungeons & Dragons, particularly the blockbuster August release of Baldur's Gate 3. And probably in that silly voice. So there it is then, our boy Baldur's Gate 3 getting called out by name by Big Papa. Baldur's Gate 3, of course, being the D&D video game breakout hit set in the magical realm of... forgotten, sorry. But the video game did come out this year, and it came out to massive critical and commercial acclaim. And while I am a huge fan of Baldur's Gate 3, I adored the game, I had a ton of fun with it, I believe that it's an amazing introduction to Dungeons & Dragons, and I even dedicated an entire video on this channel talking about how well it works, this landmark success has had a little bit of a dark side, like building your own gallows. Because Wizards of the Coast are now steering a new direction when it comes to their role-playing games, as a result. And while we're probably going to see Baldur's Gate 4, which, you know, that's really good, unfortunately Hasbro is going to be a Hasbro about it, and Chris Cox is going to be a, well, you get the picture. See, the massive takeaway that Cox & Co have received from the success of Baldur's Gate 3 is that they need to invest in D&D as a, quote, digitally driven multimedia franchise. That's a little bit further than just simply licensing another amazing video game out to Larian Studios. Because while Baldur's Gate 3 was amazing, it was only so good because Larian Studios had 6 years to make it. That's a very slow turnaround. And from Chris Cox's perspective, he won't even be here in 6 years, so what's the point? In his role as CEO, that's not a threat on his life. Please do not send the Pinkertons after me. I already have the Okrana knocking on my door. You instigate one little uprising against the Tsar and you're tarred for life. But it's true that Chris will have likely moved on within the next 6 years, and they need to turn Hasbro around ASAP or else the stock will keep dropping. So the reality of a digitally driven multimedia franchise approach to D&D simply means a broader moving away from the tabletop physical experience and instead turning the focus onto other formats for experiencing the game and the IP. And that's something that Hasbro can do in the immediate future. Because Wizards of the Coast have another property that they own, and one that has enjoyed enormous profits this year: Magic the Gathering. Specifically, Universes Beyond, which is a series of card sets where WotC partner up with other IPs and transform them into Magic the Gathering playing cards. This year saw a Lords of the Rings set, and that has made a boatload of money. As they say in this report, Universes Beyond has continued strong sales with operating profit up 99%. And they even highlight that Lord of the Rings is a particular moneymaker, still selling strong even today as I speak. So Universes Beyond is more than likely the future of Magic the Gathering. But they can't can't do that with D&D. They don't own D&D quite so tightly. In fact, as I hinted earlier on in this video, this is likely one of the main drivers for why WotC tried to get rid of the D&D open gaming license back in January in the first place. Yeah, the thing that kicked off the entire OGL scandal. See, there is already a Lord of the Rings RPG, one that is 5th edition compatible and can't be played without giving WotC any money at all thanks to the OGL, the open gaming license. But it's not just Lord of the Rings, there's RPGs for all sorts of settings, all sorts of franchises already, all relying on the OGL. So Wizards can't really do a Universes Beyond with D&D and make 99% more operating profit because the OGL just lets third parties do that instead without paying WotC a single buck. And thanks to leaks during the OGL scandal, we now know that that makes Hasbro Wizards very, very mad. I mean, think of all the money that they're leaving on the table.
I must have her. Are you mad? The Alliance!
However, there is a way to get around this. See, the OGL only covers 5th edition, and it only matters if you can actually buy third-party products to play. And sure, Hasbro Wizards don't have a monopoly on D&D here in the physical realm, but in a, I don't know, proprietary, bespoke, digital tabletop closed system, they could sell Universes Beyond type D&D content over there, because they could just decide not to let any competitors into their walled-off virtual garden. Sure, there's a Lord of the Rings RPG, but it doesn't matter if it's not supported in the new 1D&D D&D Beyond digital tabletop simulator. If you're playing virtually, you're gonna need to get it directly from Hasbro Wizards. So when Chris Cox says that the future of D&D is a digital multimedia franchise future, that doesn't just mean D&D getting into video game spaces and TV shows, though obviously that's gonna be a big part of it, but it also means getting other franchises inside of D&D in a way that it can be monetized like it has been in Magic the Gathering. I mean, who doesn't want a Frodo skin for their digital halfling character avatar? Or want to wield Anduril, Flame of the West, forged from the shards of Narsil? Or hell, why not pick up a Captain America shield skin too? I mean, of course, all of this might utterly undermine the integrity of your DM's game, particularly if it's not set in Lord of the Rings or Marvel, but hey, think of the money that Hasbro will make. Probably worth it, right? Right? I mean, it'll keep the Pinkertons off them at least for a while. Now, some of that is just speculation, but it's really interesting reading the actual report because they spent all this time talking about the multimedia future of D&D, and meanwhile, Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition, or whatever you want to call it, I mean the new version of D&D, it doesn't even get a mention in the report. The physical game is hardly talked about at all. So what does that say about Hasbro's focus on the direction of role-playing? I mean, evidently, they don't see really a lot of money in it. Still, this is all just a potential future based on what they see today. The end of physical play isn't here quite yet. Dungeons & Dragons isn't dead, role-playing isn't in oblivion. Ugh. And Hasbro have taken a bit of a knock, but they're not down. And there is some good news in here too, because D&D Beyond users was only up 2% this quarter, meaning that all of the D&D Beyond cancellations that occurred in response to the OGL scandal have likely hurt the growth of that platform overall. And hopefully it has led to some introspection at WotC HQ. I mean, hopefully. God, I really hope they've learned some lessons. Still though, next time you get together to play a game, hug your DM close as the winter rolls in and the dark nights come by. If you thought 2023 was bad, well, if Hasbro keep up this trajectory, 2024 is gonna be a wild ride. Still though, it can't be much worse than this, can it? Well, check it out and see. And if you want to support my coverage and analysis of the industry and role-playing games, then check out my Patreon for exclusive reviews, videos, live streams, and hangout spots. Link in the description below. And a massive thanks to all my patrons, especially CryptoKev, Novani, and Travis Hunter. Thank you so much, guys, and I'll catch y'all next time. Bye-bye!